Hi everyone, I'm Ellie from Ellie's Exotics, and I am joined here with Vicky, my Woma python, and today we are going to be going through almost every single snake species that is recommended, and we're going to be talking about whether or not I recommend them. Let's find out what actually is the best pet snake, or perhaps the best snake for you, because everyone's opinions and tastes are different. Towards the end of the video, we are going to be finding out your opinion and what comments you have left on my YouTube posts and see what you think the best pet snake is. So if you would like to join in and be a part of things like that and a part of future videos, make sure you do subscribe down below and leave a comment of what your favorite lizard species is for a chance of being featured in my next video. So let's get right into the video. We're going to be splitting these snakes up into 3 categories, which is pythons, colubrids, and boas. We are starting out with the pythons because they are definitely the most popular pet snake. In fact, Responsible Reptile Keeping's Reptile Super Survey determined that the ball python was the most common pet snake for people who filled out the last survey. So let's start with ball pythons and my opinion on them. First and foremost, do I think they are a good pet snake? Yes, I do. But do I think there are better snakes out there for a beginner? Also, yes. That doesn't inherently make them a bad pet snake. I just think that they won't suit everyone's level of expertise. Ball pythons do need higher humidity than most species on this list. And if you aren't achieving that high humidity and your temperatures are off, then you will have a picky snake. Sometimes it might not even be husbandry related. Your ball python might not like the color of the food that you are giving them. Things like that, ball pythons are known for. They also do have iffy genetics sometimes because of the way that they're bred. They are mass produced, so they can be more susceptible to our eyes. But other than that, ball pythons get to a brilliant size. They are a very handleable size, and the minimum enclosure size of 4x2x2 is easy to come by. They are also generally very, very docile, so I can see why they are definitely suggested a lot. But before I give my alternative to a ball python, let's go through the other 2 species of pythons that are commonly recommended. So if you are from Australia, then the carpet python is definitely a snake that is constantly recommended along with the children's python. But I won't go into children's pythons today. We'll talk just about carpet pythons because they are an in-between size snake from a ball python and from the next snake that we're going to talk about. Carpet pythons, when it comes to eating, they are definitely a lot better than a royal. However, that does come with a lot of food motivation, or nibbling as I like to call it. They are also a lot more arboreal than a royal python, so you will need an enclosure that is going to take up a lot of height and also length. But if you were going to go for any type of carpet python, then I highly recommend diamond pythons. That's what a lot of people at Australian expos were talking to me about. They said that they are generally a lot more docile than your coastal carpet pythons and your jungle carpet pythons. And you can't deny that their patterns are absolutely stunning. They're beautiful. And then python number 3, which is definitely not a snake that I recommend for a first-time owner, but if you think you can handle it, then I am not here to stop you, and that is the Burmese python. This is a snake that is recommended if you do want a large snake. Would I ever own one? At this point in my life, no. But I would love one. They're beautiful and, you know, they're cuddly, tame puppy dogs in most cases. But you do need 2 people to safely handle them once they're at adult size. In my opinion, any snake over 6 foot, you should be supervised when handling them. It's for your safety and it's also for the snake's safety too. So if you are wanting a Burmese python, I would suggest that you get your partner or your parents or family on board with that. A big snake is also extremely expensive to feed. Even though they're bigger and they're going to be eating less, those huge prey items are going to cost a lot. And they are incredibly fast growers. They grow extremely fast. you're looking at a snake that in just a few years' time, they are going to be well over 6 feet. So you need to be prepared to start upgrading very quickly. But they are great eaters, and like I said, majority of the time they are puppy dog tame. They are going to sit there and hang out with you, and they definitely have a lot of personality. So those are the most common pet pythons. Do I recommend all of them? No, obviously I don't think the average person should own a Burmese python, but hey, if you want a huge snake and you've done your research and you're being sensible, then go for it. But my recommendation, if you want something a little bit different, are these two species. Up first, obviously, I'm going to say the Woma python. So, Bicky here is such an inquisitive little snake. He is absolutely lovely. Let's see if it'll focus on him. There he is. Now, these guys make such wonderful pets. The males aren't going to outgrow 6 feet. Majority of the time you're looking at about 4 to 5 feet. The females getting slightly bigger. They are fantastic eaters and they eat a variety of prey. You are not going to see a picky Woma python. And compared to the other alternative that I'm going to list, they aren't that expensive. Now, compared to a ball python, yes, they absolutely are, because you can get ball pythons for free. But Woma pythons, typically you're going to be looking at about a few £100s to buy one. But my other alternative, you're going to be paying a lot more than that. I've seen them start from about £600 and go all the way up to 1,000, 1,200, things like that. And that is the Angolan python. Now, I recommend this species because they do look almost identical to ball pythons. So if you do have the money to spend on a snake and you want to go for something that is going to be a reliable eater, you know, they have lower humidity needs, their temperatures are very achievable, then an Angolan python might be for you. Okay, so now I'm going to pop Bicky away. I'm going to grab a Colubrid and we can get on to talking all about the most recommended Colubrid snakes. Okay, so I have got Toast here and he is my Mexican black king snake and he is obviously a Colubrid. So let's start out with talking a little bit about milk snakes and king snakes as a good first time snake. I'm going to group the two together because they have very similar characteristics in that these guys are very food motivated. They have a brilliant appetite and they are constantly looking out for food. The second I put my hand in his enclosure, he thought I was an adorable little pinky. So hook training is definitely something to look into if you are thinking of getting a milk snake or a king snake. They do, however, get to a very reasonable size. And depending on which species you go for, you can get one that is smaller or larger than a corn snake, which tends to be a very popular choice as a first colubrid. So let's talk about corn snakes. One thing that I love about corn snakes for beginners is how much information there is on them out on the internet. There's plenty of care guides. I have a care guide for them. There's plenty of breeders and people to talk to about these snakes. And they're also very accessible, so they're in a lot of rescues. Unlike some of my recommendations, they are very cheap to get your hands on, and they grow to a very good size. But one thing that all colubrids kind of have in common is how fast moving they are. So Toast here is obviously being very chill, he's a very good boy, but my corn snake Kiki, who wasn't handled sufficiently as a baby because she is a rescue, is definitely extremely skittish. She is not easy to get out of the enclosure. She would never bite or anything like that, but she's not easy. I don't have her out right now because she is in blue at the moment. So yeah, a lot of colubrids are going to be like that. They aren't typically a sit and chill with you animal. They are more a pay attention to and hope they don't go flinging off your hand sort of animal. But I do love that about them. And then the last colubrid we're going to talk about is actually hognoses. So not a lot of people know that hognoses are colubrids, but they are. And they are obviously rear-fanged venomous. Some people find that quite interesting and it's one of the reasons why they get a hognose as a snake. But personally, I do think their bites are kind of swept under the rug a little bit. A lot of people say, oh, it feels like a bee sting. It does feel worse than a bee sting, but luckily, hognoses, because they are reofang venomous, they would have to chew on you a little bit. Like I said, some snakes like to nibble. And they typically, if they are feeling defensive, they won't actually strike. They will bluff strike, so basically going after you with their mouth closed, and they will definitely hiss. So they can be a little bit more intimidating for a new snake keeper, but if you have had experience handling defensive snakes before, then a hognose will definitely be for you. Now, I do have an alternative for all of these snakes, but I do have to say, if you are looking to get a colubrid, a corn snake is going to be your best option. King snakes are great too. I love toast, don't get me wrong, but they are more susceptible to going on over, opening up their mouths and biting you. And once they do reach maturity, they can be a little bit naughtier than toast is being here. But corn snakes generally are going to be quite docile. They're going to be active within their enclosure, so they're fun to look at. And like I said, there's so much information on them to research. So that is my recommendation for a pet colubrid. But if you are looking for an alternative, because like I said, some people want a bigger snake as their first snake, then a false water cobra might be for you. This was recommended by one of my subscribers. They commented on one of my posts saying that that's what they recommend. I wouldn't necessarily say it is the perfect best first snake, as they are a combination, in my opinion, of a hognose and a king snake. They aren't picky with eating like a hognose. They have a very strong food drive, and they are also rear-fanged venomous, but they get huge. So if you are wanting something a little bit different that is bigger, then a false water cobra might be for you. So now I'm going to pop Toast away and we can meet my boa. I haven't shown her too much on my channel. We're going to meet my Doomrules boa Chai, and we're going to go through all of the best recommended boa species. Okay, so this is Chai, my Doomrules boa, and everyone say well done to Chai, because this was the first time getting her out that she didn't completely freak. She wasn't handled very much by her previous owner, so she has been a little bit skittish. But this is, I think, our 4th handling session with her, trying to get her out about once a week just so I don't overwhelm her. And every single time she gets better and better. But let's talk a little bit about boas and which are the most recommended boas to keep as pets. So, the number one is obviously going to be the BCI, or the Boa Imperata. BCIs do stay slightly smaller than your BC, but they definitely do have a bit of a reputation for being more defensive. They're going to be hissier, they are going to get stressed out by handling a little bit more. But like with any snake, if you keep on top of handling and you do handling sessions consistently, then you will probably be okay. And with any snake, getting them tamed down is crucial. You need to be able to take them to the vet if there's any health complications without the snake and the vet being stressed out by the experience. Building a bond with a big snake is important. So you have to be okay with getting bit every now and then if you do go for a BCI, especially a grumpy one. They are, however, brilliant eaters. Every snake on this list, bar one, is an amazing eater. And, you know, it's no doubt that people say they eat like a boa. So number 2 is your BCC, your BC, or your boa constrictor. These are your true red tails, and they get quite a bit bigger than a BCI or the other snakes on this list. Now, I have never owned a BCI or a BCC, just a disclaimer, so I'm going off of my friends' experience, their opinions on keeping them. So BCCs do generally seem to be a little bit more tame from the get-go than a BCI, which is good when you're looking for a big snake. But like the Burmese python, they do actually grow very quickly. Generally, boas have a very slow metabolism, but BCCs do have a very fast growth rate compared to a BCI. So you have to be okay with upgrading quite quickly after you bring them home. BCCs also do need quite high humidity, so you're going to need a huge, most likely PVC enclosure that can handle 80 90% humidity. They come from very, very humid parts of the world, but it might be worth it for that lovely personality. Number 3, which wasn't commonly recommended when I first got into the reptile hobby or the community, and that is the Hog Island boa. I feel like in the last couple years, they have definitely gone up in popularity. You see a lot of people with Hog Island boas, and for good reason. They are absolutely stunning, and they are a dwarf species of boa. So they are going to stay, 4, 5, 6, 7 foot, depending on the parent size and genetics. So they are a lot more handleable, and their enclosure is a lot easier to find than your BCI or your BCC. However, now I haven't kept a Hog Island boa before, but I have heard that a bit like the BCI, they can have a little bit of an attitude. But because they're smaller, that's probably easier to tame down because you can do handling sessions a lot more safely. But then the last most common pet boa would be the Kenyan sand boa. So their care requirements and looks in general look very, very different from your BCI, your BC, and your Hog Island boa. They are going to stay a whole lot smaller and act completely differently. These boas eat like boas, but Kenyan sand boas do not eat like boas. They can be very picky, specifically the males, especially during breeding season, and you aren't going to see them very often compared to a snake like Chai or a BCI or a Hog Island boa. They aren't really going to sit on the substrate very often. They are going to spend pretty much 80% of their life underneath the ground. But that size is so manageable, and I love Marmite. He is, first of all, my slowest growing snake, so I haven't had to upgrade him at all since I got him, which was about 2 years ago now. And he is so lovely. He will literally just sit in my hand. He doesn't even kick up a fuss when I get him out to handle him. And if you would like to see more of him, I do have lots of videos about Kenyan sand boas and just how amazing they are. But a good alternative to a Kenyan sand boa, which I have heard from lots of sand boa breeders, is the rosy boa. They're going to spend a little bit more time above the substrate. They get to still a very manageable size, but apparently they do have a bit better of an appetite compared to the Kenyan sand boa. So that's something to look into. But my absolute favourite alternative of boa is of course Chai here, and she is a Dumeral's boa. So Dumeral's boas come from Madagascar, and they spend majority of their time on the ground. So unlike the BCI and the BC, you won't really have to opt for a very tall enclosure. I mean, I just got her out and she was sat on her ledge for the first time ever. I have never, ever in my life seen this girl climb. Usually she is sat on the ground or sat inside one of her hides. This species is known for being a very puppy dog tame snake. Like I said, Chai has rarely been handled by her previous owner. This is a baby boa. Can we just remember that? She is only 1.5 years. She's a baby and she is not striking. She does not care. She is being very inquisitive and she's just sat here on my hand. This is very unusual for a young boa. And as she gets older, she's just going to get even more tame with constant handling routines and just confidence, because as boas grow, they are going to get a lot more confident. Their patterns and colorations are gorgeous. I mean, it doesn't really show up too well on camera, but she does have very high pinks in her. As always, she eats like a boa. Even after her kind of traumatic vet visit, where she actually almost passed away under anesthesia whilst getting her microchip, she ate a meal 4 days later. So that's how you know this snake is not going to be picky, okay? They're not fussy at all. But those are all of my recommendations. Now let's have a look what you guys, my subscribers, are suggesting as a first pet snake. So 39% of you said colubrids, which I do understand that, you've got your corn snakes, and corn snakes are very popular pets. But 37% of you, so very close, said boas. Now, I did put like a general poll because I couldn't put about 50 different snake species. So I wonder what boa constrictors or boas in general you guys recommend to keep as a pet. Let me know down below in the comments which you were thinking of when you selected in this poll. And then only 24% of you said pythons, which is quite mad to think about because obviously royal pythons are the most popular pet snake on the planet. But let's see why Urban Exotic UK chose python. They said, I put python, but they're all good pets. It's all down to what suits you and space and how much you're willing to work with them and your experience level. I definitely agree with this. My main factor when selecting a pet snake is choose what you want, okay? Don't choose what a care guide is saying will be the easiest for you or what I'm saying will be the easiest for you. Choose what you find interesting because you're less likely to get bored and you're less likely to rehome them if it is a species that you are passionate about. They might be a bit more difficult to keep, like a rainbow boa, but if you are super passionate about them, then go for it. Now, Sleepy's World chose Colubrid and they said the best pet snake is a false water cobra in my opinion, but if we're talking no venom at all, then corn snake would be my option. And that is definitely a good option. Like I said, a false water cobra is a good alternative, but that food response might not be for everyone. Corn snake, however, might be for you. But now I am going to pop Chai away, and that is the end of this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. Let me know down below which snake you are going to go for. I hope this gave you some insight. Now, I don't want any comments saying you were so negative. The whole point of this video is the truth about the best pet snakes and the most recommended snakes. I'm not here to tell you that every species is sunshine and rainbows. You need to know the reality of what you're getting yourself into because the positives are always going to be the positives of owning pretty much any snake, which is they're super cool and that you should get one. But anyway, everyone say goodbye to Chai and I will see you all later. Bye-bye.